Welcome to the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I'm your host, Tenya Eickenberg, and this is a space where transformation begins. Here, we dive deep into energy healing, self-care, and the power of mindset to help you break free from old patterns and design a life that feels aligned, vibrant, and authentically you. Each week, we explore the tools, techniques, and real-life experience that guide us toward lasting healing and growth. Because true metamorphosis isn't just about change. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. Now, let's get into this week's conversation. Welcome back to the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I am your host, Tenya Eickenberg, and today I have with me Caty. Caty, thank you so much for coming on the show. And you have quite a story. You sent me your book to read, and we got through chapter 14, and I was telling you before we hit record that all the way through the book I was going, oh, just all of these noises coming out of my face, just in awe of what you have been through. Um and that you raised children through all of this, and it sounds like that your children um did not inherit their father's behavior, which I think is amazing in itself. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm excited to tell my story. I'm hoping that my story will help enlighten others that are in the same situation where they're thinking, what is going on with my mate? What's going on with my partner? I
Yeah.
need answers. It took
Yeah, 'cause
me
it's
20.
not, while this is about you and your husband, narcissistic tendencies are not strictly men related. There are many wives out there that treat their husbands in the same way that you were treated.
Absolutely. I do think the one value that it helped me with my children was that I feel kind of the mother is the main caregiver, the main organizer, the love, everything is more dominant, I think, from the mom as opposed to the dad. I could be wrong, but in our culture here, farming and everything, I think that's how it tends to be. So I was able to have a greater influence on my children that way and direct them.
Yeah, I think that is a good, that's a very valid point, that it also depends on um the environment that you're living in. Because you're right, when you're separated from society like that, because you guys were out in the country, and so you didn't have the city life always around you, so it was really contained to that space. And so while he needed to have control over everything, you were still able to have control over the raising of your children.
Exactly, exactly. Were many times, for example, the kids would be practicing for the Christmas play, and it was a potluck supper, so everybody, all, would be responsible for bringing a dish and would combine them and have supper all together, and the kids could do their Christmas concert and would be getting cleaned up, and he'd sit on the couch and say, "No, you guys aren't going."
Mm,
And I just looked at him and said, "No, we are, and you are not allowed."
right.
And I thought, we're in this kind of mood. We're not going to damper this or wreck this for the kids.
Right. And yeah, and that is, I love that. I love that you were strong enough to be able to stand up for your kids in that way. Even though you stayed in this marriage, you said it was 33 years?
Yes.
For 33 years, you stayed in this marriage. And some people would say, well, why didn't you leave earlier? Maybe you weren't strong enough to leave earlier. but you had to get all your ducks in a row. So take us back to when you really first started to notice these red flags, and kind of what they were, and what you had to endure to make this transformation from being his wife to being just Caty.
Well, I have to say, probably one things that has bothered me my whole marriage is our first date. He we went out to a restaurant. He never opened the door for me. He walked 10 feet in front of me the whole way into the restaurant, not talking, and I was kind of running and chasing behind him, and I just thought to myself, that bothered me. But
Mm-hmm.
then sitting down and having a meal, we were able to have a good meal. Visiting was happening. Things were great. But that first sign, I should have paid attention. And
Mm,
then once we were married, just newly married, I had my 4-year-old in the truck with me, and I had to go out to the field to pick him up. And I thought he always criticized my driving. So I thought, well, he's standing a little ways away from the tractor. I'll pull in between him and the tractor. He can slide in the driver's seat and I'll move over. Well, I came into the field and he ran for the tractor. So once he was in the driver's seat, he was in this rage, like his body was stiff and he's hollering at me at the top of his lungs over my daughter because she was in the middle, that I tried running him over. And
mm,
I looked at him and I started laughing. I couldn't believe that he would even think that.
yeah.
And he wasn't backing off. And I thought, okay, this is a major problem here. What is going on?
Yeah, and in the book, you and I'm not going to ruin ruin things from the book, but your daughter remembered that situation at 4 years old when she got older.
Yes,
And so I wanted to kind of point that out, because this is where, like, childhood traumas can start to form, and beliefs that, what happened, like, was I, what kind of guilt did she take on from not being able to protect you from his behavior as a 4-year-old? And
exactly.
right, and that's not something that we as parents often think about in the moment. But I know it's definitely something that you've probably thought about over the years, especially after she told you that she remembered that. um but just in that, in what you felt you weren't able to do to protect her from that, because of
E-
you trying to protect yourself from his behavior.
Yeah, and I'm a type of person that when things happen, I tend not to respond. I go really quiet.
Right. Yeah, you
And
shut down, you freeze.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I guess in all of this, he knows exactly how he is and how he treated me.
Yeah, yeah, they're not as oblivious to their behavior as somebody might try to play off, right? They I can remember, and I'm sure you went through this as well, when people are just like, "Oh, well, for my mom it was, oh, it's just part of her illness." And it was just is part of who she was. And we just kind of had to adjust to it, so that we didn't make waves, so that we didn't set things off. It,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And that's where, you know, my whole married life was like that. And I do feel that my childhood has affected me that way. And in not withholding my boundaries,
Right,
always
right.
caving in for
Yep.
everybody else to
Being a
make them
people
feel
pleaser.
comfortable.
It's being a people pleaser because we're raised to put everybody else before us. And it's not in a we should be putting ourselves first in a selfish way, but it's that we're trained um to stop and go, what can I do to make this person happy without thinking of how it's going to affect me? And that's what you did for
Exactly.
33 years.
Yeah.
Was you tried to make him happy at the expense of your own mental and physical health.
Y- exactly. And
Yeah.
I have to say, I really noticed a decline in his health the last 10, 15 years. And of course, the girls were gone, so they didn't see the progress other
Mhm.
than a few instances in his behavior. But my son was here farming, and I mean, he was getting treated the same way I was getting treated.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of situations through that. And I can remember booking an appointment at the financial institution, trying to come up with a fair farming agreement for everybody so everybody would be happy. And uh, he canceled a couple appointments. And then after the first appointment we did get in there, um, he's asking me, Bill's asking me what, kind of going through what we're going to try and accomplish in these meetings. And then I kind of handed the floor over. I said, Brent, you would be better explaining this or handling this. And once I kind of put the floor over and let him in control and him tell his story, we got out of that meeting and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, baby, we're doing this." And in my mind, I'm thinking, perfect. Like, this is what I wanted.
Right.
Him on board, let's come up. But every meeting, he would always rehash the old meeting. And I can remember telling Bill, he's playing with you. He has no intentions on coming to an agreement. And then at the end of all of this, and Brent kicked our son off the farm and didn't tell me. I
Hmm.
just Bill was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe it. He was so upset, and he said, "Katy, you called it. It was a
Yeah.
game."
Yeah.
He said he wasted my time.
And that's yeah. And that's just what they do to try to manipulate the situation to in their favor. No matter what they need to do, they feel like that it's the right thing to do to
Yeah.
get it in their favor. When did you first when was your first so you thought back to the first date is that first red flag, but in your marriage, when did you first realize that you were in an abusive marriage?
Well, honestly, that first Christmas, his mom phoned me and asked me how he was doing. And I said, not very good. And I didn't understand because his dad had passed away some years before. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he's got a lot of changes in his life. He's married now. He's adopted my oldest child, and maybe this is all playing on him with Christmas time and the feeling of family and everything. And she said, no, he always has trouble this time of year.
Mm,
And so that kind of told me, okay, there's a little bit more to this.
right.
It's deeper than what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's his own traumas that he was bringing into the relationship that he either didn't realize he had or didn't want to talk about.
Yeah,
And that just came out in his behavior.
yeah.
how did and reading the way that his mother treated you blew my mind as well, because I have wonderful in-laws. And I know a lot of people don't. um but um gosh, I just can't imagine treating my child-in-laws the way that she treated you, or the way that she treated your grandchildren. The fact that she watched your son one day and didn't feed him just blowed my mind. How did you handle that? I mean, first of all, you're handling this stuff with Brent, and now you have to handle kind of the same things with his mom. So how did
I,
how did you how did you make it through handling it with his mom while you were trying to handle him?
when they say fantasy life with an arc, it's exactly what it is fantasy life. When that instance happened, I was upset, very upset. And my walls went up.
Mhm.
I stopped taking the kids by there. I stopped interacting with her. That to me was something that you do not do. And I couldn't understand what kind of a person would do that.
Right.
And the fact is, after I learned that she took, you know, um, him down to the other farm where her other son farms, and they're getting supper ready and everything, and she left there and came back and still never fed him. Like he's a baby,
Oh,
like he's not even 2 years old.
right.
I yeah, when I walked in and Brent was frying up hamburger to cook the pasta, and I'm thinking, how hard is that? Like, how hard is pasta?
Right.
My walls were going up. But then on the other hand, I I'm still in this marriage with Brent.
Right.
You got to come up to some kind of even playing field, I guess, is what you say.
Right. Right. So you were able to, did you ever tell his mom that you were setting those boundaries, that you weren't bringing the kids over, or was it just easier to just essentially ghost her?
It's easier to ghost her.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
easier to just, I, less drama, less
Right.
fighting. I
Right.
just, um,
And it was protection, it was survival. It was you had enough to deal with. You didn't need to deal with her as well. So it was easier just to like cut that off at the knee, per se, and be able to move on with what you really needed to deal with.
yeah,
Yeah.
my priorities. Uh, yeah,
Yeah. Your kids were your
she,
priorities.
yeah. She
That's
well, she's a very controlling person. I learned early on that she likes control. And I
Mhm.
always felt that maybe in her mind, she's trying to make you feel special or should give you something or whatever, but don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody.
Right.
And I
Right.
can remember Brent telling his mom, don't be doing that. You're don't be doing that. And she still would, and I think it was trying to make you feel special, but as a result, it's causing conflict with the rest of the family.
Right. Right. And in a way, that was her way of maintaining control, which is now you can understand where Brent might have gotten some of it.
Oh, and I believe it was from him, and I believe it was from his father.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was from his upbringing for sure.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
I just after I left, I had different older neighbors tell me stories. and ask me, exactly what went wrong with our marriage. And it felt good to talk about it because throughout our whole life, everything was one way at home and it
Hmm.
portrayed another way in public.
Yeah. Oh
S-
yeah, I can remember. I have friends that were, around my mom when I was younger, and they would say that things were totally different um outside of the home than when one of them moved in with us and she saw the truth.
Yeah,
She saw the behavior that nobody else saw on the outside.
I know. Like I can remember our daughter was in college and brought one of her friends home and popped in for dinner as they were going through. And my son and my husband were having a disagreement on how to fix this one item on the equipment, and they were having some heated words out there. And the minute my daughter pulled into the yard, my son said, I walked out of the shop and Dad is as nice as pie to me.
Hmm.
He said, I looked around because I'm thinking, what changed?
Right.
And then as we're having our meal and at the table, I was trying to bring up conversations where her friend in the healthcare field and stuff, where her friend felt comfortable, where she could engage in the conversation. And Brent just shut me down there right at the table, just in front of everybody. And later on, my youngest phoned me and said, if he acts like that again, I am never coming around. And I
Hmm.
just said to her, you're telling the wrong person.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
they don't have the strength to tell their dad.
No, and I can absolutely understand where they were coming from
Yeah.
because we look at our parents as these superheroes. And there are superheroes until we get to the age of like 12 or 13, and we start to see this other side of them that we were blinded to in the beginning.
It,
And I
it,
found it interesting that your one granddaughter at I think she was 3 or 4 years old in the book was just like, I don't like grandpa.
well, she just, when
She
he
just
walked
knew.
into the room, she just grabbed my leg and held tight.
Yeah, she just knew.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that because I can remember defending my mom against people. Like, oh no, she's not like that.
Mhm.
Against other family. I'm like, oh no, she's not like that. But I was so blinded to that behavior in her because I saw her as such a superhero.
Yeah, she's your mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
So,
it
yeah.
like I know with Brent, I just, how they put off that aura, that vibe.
Hmm.
And as he aged, it just seemed to increase.
Yeah. His filter went down.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was getting comfortable with
Yep.
his actions now in front of the public. Like if
Right.
somebody would stop by the yard, drop off chemical, or a contract for the elevator or whatever, he would be making remarks and comments. And I felt sorry for my son because you know
Yeah.
he's dealing with that part of the dad that I dealt with my whole life in our life.
Right. Right.
you
Wow.
know.
Yeah.
And I feel that our son kind of stepped into the role of, I don't know, protector. It really bothered me when he was working and stopped in at the house, and him and his dad had a few words, and then he's going to leave, and then he just pulled me aside and said, Mom, if dad touches you, I want to know.
Right.
And those words hurt because your son should never have to say that to you.
No.
But he sensed and he knew,
Yeah.
you know?
So at what point did the abuse start to escalate? Because
I
it was mostly like he wanted control, right? He used his words to have that control. At what point did it start to escalate into, because it did end up getting physical at the end.
Yes, it did. I have to say, once the kids had left, I was at the point where I couldn't live like this anymore. I was always covering for him. I was always fixing all the comments. Um, and the one time our kids came, stopped in for supper, and they had their mates, and we're just visiting at the table. And all of a sudden, Brent, out of the blue, just looked at me and he said, "You should bath with the dog in the trough outside."
Oh,
And I looked at him, and well, of course, everybody at the table's uncomfortable.
right.
And then our son said, "What? What did you just say?" And then I piped up and just said, "Oh, your dad's being an ass." You know,
Right.
and I just,
He played
and
it
then,
off.
yeah, and then all of a sudden the conversation carried on, and he's smirking. Like, he's absolutely smirking. He's enjoying this. And I was tired of covering for him. I was
Yeah,
tired of being put down.
absolutely. And bringing it to out in, like, I thought that was ingenious when you started just like, you know what? I'm just gonna put it out there.
Oh, I did. Yeah. That was actually, I he brought us he hired his female cousin to come and truck with us one year and live with us on the farm. And I mean, our marriage definitely is not good.
Yeah.
And I just felt that he brought her back to kick me out. Like, that's what I felt. I felt like it would be 10 o'clock at night and it would be dark, and I'd be on the riding lawnmower out cutting grass because I just couldn't come in the house.
Yeah.
I just, and that was the summer where I said, I'm done. I can't live like this anymore. And then he pulls you back in. Look what we've done. Look what we've built. What, I guess, Caty, look what we've done. Look what we've built.
Right.
And I just, like, I was done,
Ugh.
you
Yeah, I
know.
just
I know my girlfriend's reading the book and she says, I get to a point, okay, she's finally leaving him.
right,
Ah, she
right.
stayed. What's
Yeah,
she doing?
yeah, there was one point you were like, I went to file the divorce papers, or went to have the lawyer draw them up, but I didn't file them yet because I wanted to see if things would get better.
I know.
I was just like, Katie, no. It's like yelling at the movie screen when you see the teenagers going into the barn when you know the killer's in there.
Yeah.
It's like, don't go in there. But that's a part of the um what is the word I'm looking for? The reaction to the abuse, the the feelings of I can still fix this.
Well, and I think that's what we do as women. We
Yeah.
fix things. We make everything better.
Well, we're ingrained to to make everybody else happy. We're ingrained to figure out how to fix everybody. Um, it took so many years for us to realize that we just can't fix everybody. We just have to focus on ourselves. And that's, generations and generations of help try to fix this, try to fix that. I can go back and hear stories going back to my great grandmothers and how they just put up with the abuse in their marriages because of the vows that they took. And that was one of the things that you struggled with was, these are the vows I took in sickness and in health, and until death do us part. And you took your vows very seriously, which was one of those reasons that you did stay so much longer than you should have.
I really struggled with that
Yeah.
aspect. I really struggled with it. And I can remember after one of the physical altercations I had in my mind, this has to end, because it's if I don't leave, it's not going to end well.
Right.
And I went and talked to one of my daughters, and I told her my intentions, and she said, I've been after you for 5 years to leave.
Yeah.
And I said, I couldn't leave until I exhausted all avenues that I could to help him.
Right. Right. Well,
And
because that's another one of those anchors that we have, is that I have to make sure that I went down every single path to try to fix this,
yeah,
because there's that underlying belief that I broke this.
well, and I think it's just, I don't want any regrets. I don't want any what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go through all the steps so that I know when I leave, I leave. I'm not
Right.
one of those that second guess. Like, when I make a decision, it's done.
Right.
There's no going back. And this was a major one.
Absolutely. This was a huge upheaval to your existence.
I had one young lady, from the farming community come up, and she said, what you did took guts.
Yeah, it did.
She said, I give you credit.
It did. Because we have that and Brent pointed this out so many times, that what will people think of you if you leave?
Yeah.
He used that verbiage against you, that if you leave, people are going to talk about you.
Yeah.
He didn't expect them to talk about him or his behavior. It was what did Caty do?
Yeah.
And that's a very powerful example of control.
Well, and I felt with all of this, and the whole discard phase, like he was literally cruel to me, to the point that I didn't leave my bedroom until he left the house to go outside to work.
Yeah.
That's when I left my bedroom in the morning to come out and do my chores in the house, and do everything that was necessary to run the farm. But he was so cruel. Even if I'd sit down with him in the living room, he would flick the channels constantly so I couldn't watch a show. Or so then I'd go in the bedroom to watch a show on the TV in the bedroom, and if he felt like it, he would come in the bedroom, grab the remote right out of my hand and flick it and watch. And even when I said, I was watching that, I don't care.
Right. Hmm.
So then I'm in my own bedroom sleeping, and then at midnight, my door's opened up and the lights are flicked on. He's got no cable in the bedroom, and I'm expected to get up and fix it for him.
Ugh.
And I just closed my door and shut the lights off, and it's not my
Mhm.
problem. I was at that point where it's not my problem.
Right. And then the physical stuff you said started after all the kids left.
Yes. Well, there was an incident when the kids were still at home. And his signature move is the one hand on the throat and pin ya.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that when the kids were all here.
Okay.
And that happened, well, I think my son was around 8 or 10 years old when that happened, but he never ever touched me after that until after the kids left.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And then and I have to say probably my part in that was I was tired of living that. I was tired of getting walked on, being a doormat.
Yeah.
Um and I was standing up for myself. So that might have added, well, definitely I think added to the escalation of everything because he was then losing control of me.
Right. Right. And so that's why you had to um do it took you 6 years to put into motion leaving,
Yeah.
right? I can't imagine. I mean, when you think of, you think of like when I think of when my kids were little, I'm like, my gosh, it feels just like yesterday. It was so long ago, right? They're all in their late 20s, but it feels like just yesterday. But when you're getting out of a situation, when you're moving forward towards something, it took 6 years and you had to do this all in secret.
Yeah.
How did you, and you didn't have any help from anybody for probably what, the first 3 or 4 years?
I didn't have any help from anybody really. I kept everything quiet because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if things work out between Brent and me, I don't want any hard feelings with my family and him,
Right.
you know? And I didn't want the kids to be felt and put in the middle.
Right.
So I had to learn how to survive and navigate this because really when you look at the age of my life, I'm headed into retirement and
Mhm.
I need to make sure that I'm looked after.
Right, absolutely.
um and so I had to be very methodical. I was the one that took the bull by the horn, started documenting everything, like after that incident at the marriage counselor and she pulled me into the other room. That just confirmed everything that I felt was going on.
Right.
And that's when I bought my journal and I started charting in it every day. So this time he's driving the semi with no license. He can't see.
Mhm.
And so I had dates, times, and the doctor's telling me you got to report it every time he drives. So that's adding more chaos in our life.
Right. Right. Did he
But
know you were calling the cops whenever he would drive?
yes,
Yeah.
the one time he came in the house, the police came in, the RCMP came in, talked him down at the bins as he's filling the semi with fertilizer, and then yeah, yeah. And then they left out of the yard. And then he comes in the house. And the minute he came in the house, my granddaughter grabbed my leg at the kitchen sink and held tight. And he bent down and looked at her and said, Granny's a bee. Yes, yes, Granny's just a bee. But he said the whole word to her.
Mm,
Then he left, got in his half ton, drove around, parked the half ton, got in the semi, and drove the semi out to the field.
wow.
So a lot of instances was happening like that. And I had to, but I had to look at the bigger picture. I phoned, I protected myself. There's nothing more that I could do.
Right.
Um, and on the hindsight of that, all those instances did catch up to him because he reported that I tried to run him over, which by this time I've got a security cam in my truck and everything. So I was well looked after, but the RCMP that came over to my house to look at the truck uh, was the same gentleman that was coming and visiting him on the farm, telling him not to drive. So we had a good conversation over everything. And about 2 weeks later, I get a call from another RCMP officer wanting me to lay domestic abuse charges against him.
Mm,
And I just said, no, I've got enough on my plate. I'm
right,
not entering that. I'm out of the marriage.
right,
That's not going to happen.
right. And it's not going to fix anything at that point.
No,
Right. It's just
no.
going to make things worse for both of you.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so it took you 6 years. And how long did it take from filing divorce to the divorce being final?
The divorce still isn't final.
Oh my gosh. See, I haven't finished the book, so I didn't know that.
Well, actually, the biggest thing was the land, dividing the land up.
Uh-huh.
And we ended up going to a binding trial because of all the tax consequences. And one thing I did learn is that when it is left, we both signed off. So whatever the judge determines is set in stone, and that's the way it's going to be.
Right. And that's a
Um,
good way to go. I mean, I think that is a smart way to go through it when you're dealing with a narcissistic partner,
well, yeah,
you know,
because
because
in
let
a,
the
the
law decide.
financial institution, it was all games, and
Right.
and so honestly, I'm happy with my land package. Um, I'm happy, but when you look at what the judge deemed, he was very fair, like
Mm-hmm.
very monetarily fair for both parties in what they were to receive.
Right.
And thankfully, I guess I got lucky because Brent bought a house in another province and moved out, started stripping the house and everything. So my one lawyer got me moved back onto the farm. So I've been living on the farm for 2 years when this
Oh,
went to
wow.
binding trial. So I was very fortunate to get my home,
Yeah.
my home half here with all the buildings and the equipment that we both wanted. Because he's living in a city now.
Yeah. So he finally agreed to giving you all the equipment that you wanted, or
Oh,
the judge said you get the equipment that you want.
he didn't agree to anything. He tried
Yeah.
kicking me off the farm.
Okay.
But I mean, the judge, he had already been living in a city in another province for 2 years, and
Okay.
he has no license. So I was very fortunate that he bought a house
Yeah.
and resided there. But I have to say, the first ever time that we went to court, when I first left, I'm sitting at the back of the courtroom, and it's the two lawyers and the judge. And my lawyer looked at me and then looked at the judge because I'm not allowed to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So the proceedings are just kind of going over for who's farming that year and stuff. And the judge looked at me at the back of the courtroom and then looked at my lawyer and said, I highly recommend that your client get camera surveillance.
Wow.
And so then it was deemed that Brant would do the farming and I would do the books and carry
Right.
on that end. And so then we left, and my lawyer took me in a sealed room and he looked at me and he said, I have never had a judge say that.
Wow.
And this judge is retired. Like, he was a well-seasoned judge, but I was pretty intimidated when those affidavits were coming back and forth, and upset that Brent was lying. And
Mm-hmm.
then I thought, you gotta expect this. You
Yeah.
gotta expect this. So then I'm thinking, how do you prove that he's lying?
Right.
So got a tripod camera, set it up, took different pictures backing up my statements, and I think that was what really helped me because then you could actually see what I was talking about.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah, proof. Yeah, having physical proof is everything when you're in court.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're moving forward with your life. You're back on the farm. What else are you doing besides writing this wonderful book?
Well, I'm back on the farm. Our son is farming all the land. And he will be farming my half of the land. I'm not quite sure what, it's always a game with Brent.
Right.
So we're not quite sure about that, but he'll have all my land to farm. Plus he's got his own land that he has.
Mhm.
So he's looking after the farm. I'm living in the farmhouse. I'm doing all the farmyard work and I plan on traveling.
Aw, what's the on the top of your bucket list?
Well, at the end of June, my brother and I are taking my mother to Ireland.
Oh, how fun.
We've hired a genealogist and they've traced the family name back to 1654 at the base of the Curlew Mountains. And we have land locations and everything where they lived.
Wow.
So I call it a treasure hunt.
Yeah,
She's
that's awesome.
82 and we're going on a treasure hunt.
I love that.
So that's coming up here in a couple of weeks and then yeah, I do like my Mexico and then I am looking at going to Spain next year.
Nice. Well, you're going to have an amazing time. Traveling is so much fun. And one of the things my husband and I do is we always try to find unique spots. So find a unique, something unique that is not your normal touristy
Yeah.
place. And you'll have the most amazing stories come out of that. It's so much fun.
Oh, I can remember being down in Boca del Toro's island and taking the water taxi over to the mainland and taking their bus system to the resort. And honestly, that was probably my funnest day of the whole holiday.
That's wonderful. Caty, what would you like the listeners to hear? What advice do you have if they're in your position?
Well, first of all, um, to find a counselor that they can connect with, and your doctor can help in this area. That was huge for me because the counselor wants permission to talk to the doctor if necessary. So it's good to have a good team that work together. I was fortunate because I found a husband and wife team that fit this, and we just mesh.
Mhm.
I've learned so much from her over handling stress and how to deal with situations.
Yeah.
And to journal, write it all out, get it out of you and write.
Yeah.
And you can interview lawyers. Lawyers give you an hour or two of your time and listen to what they have to say. I have a list of questions at the end of my book that would be good questions that you can ask them.
That's awesome.
And learn how to gray rock.
Mm,
Uh, that
yeah.
is, to me, that was necessary for my survival.
Learn how not to respond to their behavior.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And like I think it's important to have good support from your family and your friends. Have that couple friends and that family member that you can tell anything to because when I kind of look back on everything and how I repeated myself so many times, and my friends never said enough. They
Hmm.
listened to me because in your mind, you're going through and you got to say it time after time again because you're trying to comprehend the whole discard phase on how they really treated you and
Yeah.
how they groomed you. You know, it that's not normal behavior.
No.
and you need that person to bounce everything off of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredibly important. Find people that you can trust.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that can be also hard to do if you haven't had anybody to trust for a very long time.
Yeah. And one thing I have to say is that I have a very tight family.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's
I sorry about that. My brother kept telling me, Caty, time is on your side. He with time, he shows the courts who he is. Be
right,
patient.
right.
And in the end, he was right. But I'll tell you, it's a hard road to go down
Mm-hmm.
when you just want out. You want peace in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely see just wanting to give in and give them everything they want so that it can just be over.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to that's the most important time to stand up for yourself and for what you need and what you deserve.
Yeah. I listen to sometimes a podcast called um oh, I can't. It's with Sven, Badass Counseling. And he has a program on Saturdays where you can send in your questions, and I was fortunate that he had the time to answer mine. And it was I recorded it because when I'm feeling low or I'm feeling weak, I put that in, and it's just like you got your cheering team in the back, right? Going for the next line.
Yep.
And I needed that. I really needed that. And probably my age that I'm at, I knew I had to look after myself financially for retirement.
Yeah.
And I also had a son that wanted to farm.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in the world that can make a mother fight than her kids.
Absolutely.
When you know that you're fighting for your kids so that they have an opportunity, that's huge. And my children are my life. Like, you know, a
Yeah.
mom would do anything for her kids.
Yeah. And it definitely sounds like that you've broken that generational curse of the narcissism.
I hope so. I truly hope so. I can't see anything right now,
Mm-hmm.
but as I learned with Brent, it was right from the beginning, and I can't see that in my kids.
Yeah.
So, but I have strong children.
Right. Well, they
Uh,
saw how strong you had to be.
yeah,
And I think um that is what you were brought here to show them was how strong somebody can be in those situations.
yes,
And so they take that strength and they use it in good ways,
yeah.
right?
I really enjoy talking with my son because he's not the type of person where your cup is half empty. He
Right.
always finds positive in everything that's happening.
Yeah, I love that.
So when I'm having a bad day or something happened that I'm not thrilled of, for example, my lawyer, we wanted more land, and I would have loved the opportunity to buy him out,
Mm-hmm.
but the judge didn't rule that, so that's fine.
Right.
So she's asking me, how do you feel about that? And I said, it is what it is. I said, I'm grateful for what I have.
Right. Right.
And I mean, I wouldn't have my home right now if it wasn't for her.
Right. Yeah. Half cup is how the cup is always half full.
Yeah, yeah, there's always positives and everything. And that's one thing when I first left, I was still putting him first in all the decisions for about the first 2 years. And then it's just like, okay, the tables have to switch. This is
Right.
time where you have to start looking after yourself.
Right. And I think that shows a lot, that says a lot about your character, is that you are, through all of this, you maintained being a caring person.
Yeah.
You
And that's
maintained,
something nobody will ever take from me.
right, because that's your character. That's who you are. You're not the type of person to say to just steamroll him, or to steamroll
No,
anybody.
no.
There's a
I
lot about your character in that, even though he was so mean and so cruel to you, you're able to say, no, you should still get what you deserve.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you should still get that half that you deserve as being a part of this marriage.
yeah, yeah.
And that says a lot about you.
What I do, it has to be with good intentions and good heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
I'm the one that has to live with myself, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Caty, where can they find your book?
if they go to cultivatingfreedom.ca, that's my website, and there will be a link there where you can go and buy the book off of Amazon.
Perfect. Wonderful. And yeah, so that will all be in the show notes. So make sure everybody goes to her website, purchase her book, read her story, and learn from it. It is laid out in a way that you can go through the book and you can easily find these red flags to look for in your own relationship. Caty, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Well, this is absolutely a wonderful opportunity. I struggled in my marriage for 28 years trying to find out what was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think how many other people are in the same boat.
Yeah,
And if
a
I
lot
can
more
help
than
them,
should
I
be.
will.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
Oh, I've totally enjoyed this visit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I hope today's episode brought you inspiration, joy, and a spark of empowerment. Remember, transformation is an incredible journey, and every single step you take towards self-care and healing brings you closer to the life you truly desire. If this episode uplifted you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us to share this journey of hope, resilience, and joy with many listeners. For more tips, support, and inspiration, come and visit us at designyourexistence.com. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep shining brightly. You are absolutely worth every bit of love and care you give to yourself. Take care, stay joyful, and be well.